Are you at all concerned, and do you spend time thinking about whether or not you're kind of playing to your base a little bit too much? Because you're clearly gaining a following that is primarily hip-hop fans. Those fans are usually looking for somebody who's going to be optimistic about somebody's chances of getting out. They want somebody who's going to be rooting for the artist. But do you ever find yourself in situations where you take a look at the case and you're like, oh, he's guilty as fuck and he's a terrible person who needs to be locked away, but then you don't want to say that on your social media because, like, let's say that was your opinion of Youngboy. If your opinion was this is a homicidal maniac who needs to be behind bars, I mean, I would assume that the level of respect that you'd be getting from the Youngboy fans and the fans overall would be a lot less if you were to just say, lock this fucker up.
So, on the one hand, the media indicts defendants plenty already. So when you're perp walked into the courtroom out the police car and you're put on that defense table, everybody thinks you're guilty. You're guilty as charged, motherfucker. So I have no problem balancing that out a little bit. So if I do feel like my commentary might be coming more on the defense side, all that really is doing is adding some leveling to the conversation. To your other question, if I thought a motherfucker was guilty as hell, I'd just keep it to myself.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to influence the case in that way, or what's the reason?
My interest is in pointing out to people some basics about how the criminal justice system works. That this is what's going to happen, and there are some, just kind of explaining that. I don't really get anything out of basically just telling the world, yeah, this guy's guilty as fuck.
Right.
That's just kind of talking about him.
Yeah.
And so if there isn't like an opportunity to give you some lens into the basic process and the value judgments and the weighing that people do, like, hey, what should I do? If there's not that value, if I'm just telling you, hey, I know something you don't know, I would usually just keep my mouth shut.
Because if you look at somebody like Pooh Shiesty, I mean, he saw his day in court, I believe, and he seems like he pretty much did everything that they charged him with. It's like, how much value are you really adding to the conversation if you're going to just be a guy out here saying, like, yeah, he's guilty as fuck? Like, everybody who has heard the details of the case pretty much already felt that way. They were maybe looking for a little bit of sunshine, a little silver lining on all the bad news that was just coming in about him. I don't remember exactly how you covered that situation, but is there ever a time where it's kind of hard to not just, like, state the terrible reality of these cases?
When the serial numbers on his Instagram matched, when that news broke, which was a couple months after the original. So when it initially broke, I was pointing out, hey, in that video you can't see this, or hey, that. And then when he got the second charge, because there was a shooting at a club, and the bouncer said he hit him, and I was pointing out some stuff where that might happen. And then the serial number thing came out, so I just left it alone because that's cooked.
That's cooked.
The serial, and that's why he took the plea.
Oh, yeah. So speaking of the plea, now there were a lot of reports came out.
I'm just going to blow my nose real quick.
Okay. There was a lot of reports coming out about snitching allegations of Proverb. Do you know, like, what went on, with that?
There was absolutely zero snitching happening by Pooh. He would have got a downward departure. He did not.
Yeah.
I think Whack 100 said some shit. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Look, if I plead guilty, I have to tell you what I did. I cannot plead guilty without actually saying what I did. Right? So in the course of telling you what I did, I'm going to say that, hey, this is the crime that I committed. So anybody else who the cops know who are around when you commit that crime, fine. But the other two co-defendants in his case also pled guilty. So the idea that Pooh is informing on his co-defendants by pleading guilty, which requires him to tell the judge what they did, when the other two also pled, is just pure fiction. And then the idea that he told about any other crimes, no, because he would have got a downward departure for informing about other people's crimes. He only got a downward departure for accepting his own guilt and not making everybody go through a trial. Hey, you accept guilt, you plead guilty, we're not going to have to do this whole trial, we'll give you a little bit less, we'll give you a little leniency. But he didn't get a downward departure for snitching. That's a 5K statement. He didn't have one.
Yo, why do you think the prosecutors were incentivized to, because he got a great deal with that plea deal, so why do you think they were incentivized to, like, give him that great of a deal?
I don't know that he got a great deal. He's doing multiple years. I think he got shaved off 2 to 3 years, probably because the quality of his attorneys.
Hey,
Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, subscribe. We just hit 200K. We're trying to get to 300K.
Turn us up.
Appreciate y'all.
Let's go.